Lethal Company is a first-person survival horror exploration game where you and up to 3 friends can travel into abandoned facilities to gather things worth selling to a mysterious company that you work for. The game is in early access and available on Steam. Atmosphere. The gameplay loop requires you to keep searching abandoned facilities to sell items to meet the quota, and it only provides you several days to get what you need, so already there's a bit of pressure to get the job done in time, with each time your crew is slain reducing the days you have left to meet the quota, as well as costing you everything you gathered so far. The facilities themselves are often dark and lonely, and thanks to the procedural generation, there's not a lot of variety visually, but enough variation in the way of items, enemies, and layout to make every single foray into the facilities a nerve-wracking experience as you delve deeper to meet your quota, with each place holding new horrors that you can hear clicking or crawling through the vents to remind you that you aren't alone. Even with friends, the game is still tense, and the proximity voice chat goes a long way to making you feel alone when you're separated without a walkie-talkie. There's a sense of paranoia and apprehension as you go into each new room where something horrible is potentially lurking around every corner, and it uses new creatures so sparingly that even after 10 or so hours of playing, we were still seeing new things. Even when you have a walkie-talkie, if you're going in alone and with someone telling you where things are back on the ship, there's a deliberate vagueness to reading the map and conveying enemy locations that makes it more like an approximation as to where the treasures and horrible creatures are, so that you never really feel like you have the advantage or truly know what you're doing. Death comes out of the left field, and you never really were ready for what the moon had in store for you. The game's atmosphere of loneliness is alleviated with friends, and many situations are sometimes side-splittingly funny, but there's a habit to still feel paranoid even when you're laughing. That's one Harry Mason. Scares. The game's scares are all organic. You never truly see them coming. Whether it's accidentally getting too close to a ball of electric bees or walking out into quicksand, the game's unpredictability with just a small set of things causes a brilliant layering effect where everything that happens feels cleverly orchestrated, but it's completely random. A giant spider chasing you through a corridor that's filled with steam so dense you can't see properly can be utterly terrifying and feels like a cruel trick, but it's again just the circumstances you've gotten into, and things often come together so well that it's hard to believe it wasn't planned. Your inquisitiveness and desperation to continue further for better things to sell will be the death of you. The monster variety is also great, with many of them having unique behaviours and patterns, and some seeming totally docile and others becoming aggressive when you do the wrong thing. It creates a sense of uncertainty, but once you've angered it, running away from them is often hard thanks to the maze-like construction of the facility, like I mentioned with the spider. And whilst this is often fantastic, the procedural generation has its downsides, because when it's good, it's great, but with everything happening randomly, you'll sometimes find certain journeys are completely uneventful or yield nothing much in the way of treasure whatsoever. There's also the side effects of playing games with friends, in that lingering feeling a scary moment has will disappear as you all laugh about it on the ship, assuming you make it back. The game's scares have an incredible amount of potential, and even when they aren't scary, they're a great deal of fun and keep each expedition fresh. That's 2 Harry Masons. Sound design. Lethal Company's sound design is the epitome of simple but effective, with most of the effort going into the voice chat. Something as simple as having your microphone cut off when you die can leave your companions questioning whether you're alive or not, and it's frustrating to watch them go searching for you in an area where you died, leading themselves into danger. Another area where it does a great job is with the sound cues, with a lot of sound effects allowing you to identify a monster by sound alone, and thanks to the directional audio being pretty stellar, you can even identify the sound of monsters crawling around in the vents above you. Though it has its limits, and sometimes it's again vague enough on purpose to let you hear a monster on the floor above you and have it sound like it's on the same floor as you.
Make yourself at home. To complete the onboarding process, you will want to check...
The game has some voice acting for the company Robot Voice, and it's very silly that it cuts into a beat when it gets going, but other than some more dusty, melancholic guitars, the game doesn't have that much in the way of music and prefers to leave you alone with its monsters crawling through the vents, with the reverb-soaked sound of your friend's screams, with the sound of the steam so overwhelmingly loud that you can't hear the turret that just locked onto you. That's 3 Harry Masons. Gore. The game's gore really boils down to the blood splatters left by your body when you die, and if there is more, then I've not really had the pleasure of seeing it. The blood itself is pretty fantastic, but it feels like more could have been added to the game when you die in other situations. But there is a limit to the amount of gore whilst also having the same mechanic that lets you sell your fallen friends' bodies, so it's a caveat worth the risk for an amusing mechanic. That's 4 Harry Masons. Story. The story of Lethal Company is clearly buried within the game somewhere, with the looming corporate building with its tentacle monsters lurking behind the service window, and all the strange logs you can find throughout the game. But in the time we spent playing, we didn't find anything concrete. There's a lot of suggestion towards previous crews and a conspiracy, but it never went anywhere from what we saw, so if there is more in the game, then we have yet to see it. But as it is, there's not a whole lot to go on in the way of story at the moment. Making the final score 4 out of 5 Harry Masons.
Your honest work is invaluable to the company.
Lethal Company is one of the most impressive multiplayer horror games I've played in a long time, with it coming together so well as to feel like it's out to get you, while also being so silly that it's a miracle the game manages to be frightening at all. Again, I'd like to remind you the whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I met the quota, I did not leave too many friends behind and advise you don't either. There'll be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching. Let's go check out Bumps in the middle of the night. Peace.